This is the scandal of the century. A tale of, well, persecution, really, of the raging lefties at the British banking industry and luxury bank coots, waging war on our courageous, devoted, beloved Brexiteers just for the crime of having an opinion, loving their country. I mean, the establishment are out to crush that tribune of the people, that working class hero, Nigel Farage, by closing his bank accounts. Let's just hear a little from our downtrodden martyr, Nigel Farage. But please, I beg you, have your handkerchiefs ready. Because this is a story of woe. And if you're having a difficult day, please look away now, because I can barely cope emotionally. And frankly, my day's been kind of fine.
I've been living with something for the last couple of months that may well fundamentally affect my future career going on from here, and whether I can even stay living in this country. I have been with the same banking group since 1980. I've had my personal accounts with them since that date, and my business accounts right through the 1990s, when I worked in the City of London, and in recent years too. I'm with one of the subsidiaries of this big banking group, one with a very prestigious name, but I won't name them just yet. I got a phone call a couple of months ago to say, we are closing your accounts. I asked why. No reason was given. I was told a letter would come which would explain everything. The letter came through and simply said, we are closing your accounts. We want to finish it all by a date, which is around about now. I didn't quite know what to make of it. I complained. I emailed the chairman. A lackey phoned me to say that it was a commercial decision, which I have to say, I don't believe for a single moment.
So his tweet accompanying it says, the establishment are trying to force me out of the UK by closing my bank accounts. I've been given no explanation or recourse as to why this is happening to me. This is serious political persecution at the very highest level of our system. If they can do it to me, they can do it to you too. And so other brave souls came to Farage's defence, like Andrew Neil, former BBC flagship interviewer. If this is anywhere near a fair and accurate account of the situation, and it looks to me that it is, then it really is quite the story and very troubling. He even got a little menacing, tweeting, because for some reason Farage didn't actually mention who the bank was. I think this is really important. So Andrew Neil tweeted, if it is Coots/RBS, then they have no idea of the world of pain that is about to confront them. Oh, Andrew, I love it when you talk tough. RBS is, of course, the Royal Bank of Scotland he's referring to there. Now, the advisor to Donald Trump, Jason Miller, there were so many people who piled on, just giving some examples, tweeted, this is insane. Political persecution and cancel culture is a problem everywhere. The globalists can pull the levers. We have our back. Yeah, those pesky globalists who run the banking industry. Perfectly fine rhetoric there. He did a big segment, Nigel Farage, on his GB News show, asking if we really live in a free country. He did a Telegraph article in which the headline was, after my banking travails, I fear Britain is lost, adorned with pictures of pride flags because it was Pride Month in central London, in which he bemoaned the multicoloured pride flag adorning the premises of many of our corporation. Woe betide you if you do not conform with its worldview. Yes, those bloody LGBTQs probably behind this, isn't it? What are they like? Jeremy Hunt, our Chancellor, announced he was deeply concerned. David Davis, the Tory MP, raised it in Parliament. It was the front page of the Daily Mail. Banks face probe into chilling account closures. So as this storm only mounted, a true national scandal, what exactly did happen to explain this horrendous persecution being the word, of course, Nigel Farage used, of a national hero just for his temerity to have opinions and probably to have led to the huge success that our separation from the European Union has truly proved. So it turns out the bank was Coots, a prestigious private bank, it must be emphasised, for the wealthy. It is weird, isn't it, that Nigel Farage didn't make that very clear at the outset. I mean, if I was going to be cynical, which I'm not, I'd, maybe speculate that it might kind of undermine the kind of man of the people taking on the elite image that he's so keen to cultivate. Now, according to the BBC, this is what actually has happened. Farage fell below the financial threshold required to hold an account at the luxury bank Coots. That's at least £1 million with a bank or holding £3 million in savings. And then he was subsequently offered a standard account at NatWest, which owns Coutts. Now, Nigel Farage says at no point in the last 10 years did Coutts give me a minimum threshold. More importantly, the offer of a NatWest personal account only came after I went public last Thursday. Now, the slight problem there, a little hiccup, maybe with that story, if we're going to get all pernickety and technical and throw these woke facts about, is it is on their website, quite clearly. If you go on their website, it says clients are required to maintain at least £1 million in investments or borrowing, mortgage, or £3 million in savings. In fact, if you apply, it's literally the second question they ask you. Now, here's what I think Nigel Farage should do, because he says, well, he had this correspondence, he had a phone call with the guy who runs the bank and all the rest of it. They said it was a commercial decision. Did they say it was about the threshold? It seems odd if they didn't. I just think we should be very clear about this. I think he should just release all of his correspondence with Coutts, what letters they sent him, so he can actually read what it says, just to see if he was entirely forthcoming with exactly what's happened. I think that would be useful at this point, wouldn't it? But what this really does expose is how the hard right, the so-called populist right, are politically fraudulent. Now, Farage is a privately educated former city commodities trader with, well, until now, a bank account at Coutts. And what we've had over the last few years are relentlessly manufactured culture wars by his ilk, particularly over migrants and refugees, but also over so-called wokery, that is the rights of minorities in general, and the cynical misconstruing of what the establishment, which does exist, actually is. So we don't no longer see the establishment about who's got wealth and power. It's no longer about big business exploiting workers, or the rich avoiding tax, or indeed the bankers of the city who plunged this country and the world into a catastrophe from which we literally never recovered. But instead, it's some so-called progressive elites, so that privately educated former commodities traders with bank accounts at Coutts can pretend to be oppressed. The idea that Coutts is somehow part of some progressive conspiracy, I think personally, is stretching, certainly, my credulity just a tad. And do you know what all this has done? It's wrecked the country. That's what's happened. Let's just be honest about it. It has led this whole charade, this whole nonsense pantomime, which the likes of Farage has stoked. It has led to the hardest form of Brexit, with terrible consequences, which is why Brexit regret is at record level highs in the polls, I should say. Barely anyone's defending the existing model, including Farage. And the election of catastrophic Conservative governments who plunged this country into the abyss. Literally just falling apart everywhere, isn't it? The record squeeze of living standards, collapsing public services and utilities and infrastructure, insecure jobs, a housing crisis, personal debt. We really could go on for a very long time. Because the population were distracted from who the real villains were and what the real problems actually are. The consequences, national disaster. A country just spiralling in decline. Now, if you were taken in by Farage in general, I hope your eyes are wide open. But let this all be an instructive lesson, because the country has been taken for a ride, and that ride has led us off a cliff. Farage, just release all your correspondence. I don't know why we've had to indulge this very tedious story of woe as long as we have. Let's just see exactly what your relationship with this luxury bank Coutts is. I'm open-minded. But we can see what the website says, what Coutts publicly has made clear to the BBC and other media outlets. So let's just see if it's just correct, and this is to do with that. And also release your detail. I mean, what you should do is release your financial details so we can piece it all together. I think that's a reasonable ask. But this is another example of a distraction from the problems and crises and villains in this country and the real establishment. And that's what the Nigel Farage show has always been about. Please like, subscribe, please support us on patreon.com/InJoes84. I'll see you in a bit.